Coming up on this episode of the Spiro podcast, understanding your team is part of the culture you have to build as a leader. And it's hard. It takes time. It takes commitment. I mean, yes, you have the business to run, but you have no business without your team. So investing in your people and getting to know them and what makes them tick and motivates them is hugely, hugely important.
Welcome to the Spiro podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. With your hosts, Todd Kivimaki and Craig Magrum.
Hi, and welcome to the Spiro podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. Spiro is a software platform designed to help you breathe. Basically, that's what Spiro means, is breathe. So it's managing, scaling, and making your load a little bit lighter each and every day in running your business. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Craig Magrum, host, and along with us each and every week, Spiro founder and owner and co-host of the podcast, Todd Kivimaki. Good day, sir, I will say. I don't want to say good morning because, when somebody's watching, it might not be morning. So I'll just say good day.
Yeah, good day to you, sir. That was that's terrible, but for all of our UK users, I don't know. They're going to roast me on this. But as I talk to all you around the world, I learn like in the South or in the, we say y'all, you use that around here. That's our kind of country twang. But there's a lot of beautifuls. Things are beautiful in the UK. The people go on a
holiday instead of vacation.
Yeah. So just trying to get in those and then Australian, somewhat connected, but a lot of mates, of course, but then some of the same verbiage. So anyways, I'm not going anywhere great with this, but it's great to be on with you all. I'll stop my rambling and we've got an exciting topic for you this week. Yeah. And we're going to pick up last week's conversation, right, Craig?
Yeah. So where you were going with that, talking about differences in language, actually is related to what we're going to be discussing this week. So last week we talked about critical communication, which can span several different areas and people groups and whatnot. And last week we kind of talked about critical communication with staff, with our employees, with contractors, things like that, and awkward, hard conversations that we have to have sometimes in leadership. And this week we're going to be talking about communicating to our staff the idea of culture, a workplace culture, right? So that's what we're going to dive into and how to effectively communicate that, and more importantly, even the why of doing that. But before we do that, Todd, is there anything you want to talk about in terms of Spiro?
Yeah. And, Craig, I love how you just make my ramblings actually sound like they're intelligent. So I really appreciate that about you, is I'm just rambling over here. And then Craig's like, I got to make this guy seem like he knows what he's talking about. And then boom, it's like, wow, Todd actually kind of knows something. So thank you for that, Craig. That was fabulous.
You know lots of things, Todd. I try not to be just I can't even say a pretty face because I have a face for radio. But anyway.
Oh, no, you're a pretty face. Yeah, let me give you the lineup of what we just launched. So y'all would have gotten an email by now. And so we revamped the upload and download process. So we heard from some of you that the upload into the gallery was slow. And actually what was happening is the thumbnails were getting clogged up. And we were using high res before we had the thumbnails. Anyways, not to get too technical, that is completely revamped. This was just a small subset of you users. If you're still having slow uploads, just click the little pink chat bubble. But also, can you send us an internet speed test? So there's a ton that has to do with your internet speed. So I talked to some of you like when you're in a coffee shop. If you're uploading at a coffee shop, everything's going to be slow in uploading because coffee shops typically turn that upload way down, or they just don't pay for a high upload. Right. So that has been changed and revamped. And then also there's a lot of user quality of life things that we just put in. And you can run a report for more than 30 days now. You can go 90 days at a time. So if you want to grab reports at a quarter by quarter basis, and it can be outside of a month. Many of you asked for that. Copying a service area, you can quickly do it now. You don't have to start from the beginning. Login tokens. So some of you were getting logged out as an admin and you'd have to log back in again. We revamped that token, so you shouldn't have to log in again. You can copy coupon codes now. This was a cool one. So you think of this, let's put our marketing and sales brain on. And if you use coupons to help get business in, you now can you can copy a link to your realtor that they can click on the link. It will pull up the order page, but it will also autofill the coupon for them. So they don't have to put the coupon in the last step. We save the coupon code in the URL. And then when it gets to the last step, we automatically fill it in for them so that they don't have to remember to fill it in. So we try to make things simple. You can copy the link from Spiro, send it to your agent, say, hey, click here to apply the $50 discount, and it will automatically apply to them.
Nice.
So that was kind of cool. One thing on that, another marketing and sales tip, is I have a video on the Spiro support knowledge base that's about how to use your referral code to give your first time shoots for free or to give $100 off your first time shoots. I just went over this with a new user that I onboarded yesterday, and his mind was blown. He was like, wow, this is really cool. And actually, when I thought about it again, I'm like, this actually is a pretty good idea. So if you're giving away free shoots, this will streamline it for you. It uses your name of an agent referral code. So just go watch the video. I'm not going to go too much into it now, but use that if you're giving away free shoots on your IG method to try to get new business in.
We'll put a link to that video in the show notes on both YouTube and the audio for you.
Yes, thank you, Craig. Also, there's a ton of optimizations, mobile optimization, desktop optimization, a ton in there. So quality of life is going to improve in there. We're listening to you all. The next big thing we're working on is the reshoot process. So that is when you need to go back out to a property, or you need to go twice, once for the normal hours and once for twilight. That is going to be revamped here shortly.
Perfect. I'm doing a reshoot today. We had the remnants of Hurricane Beryl roll through and ruin my outdoor shots.
Yeah. And that's a very common thing. And that the idea of, hey, I couldn't shoot drone or the outside at the first appointment, I need to go back again. It's going to be super quick. Just awesome. A click or two, save, boom, done. It's on for the next day or whenever you're available.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for those updates. Appreciate that. If you guys have questions about Spiro, if you're not currently a user, check out the website at spiro.media. And there, like Todd mentioned, there is a link to the knowledge base. It's in the top nav, isn't it?
Yeah. So once you log in, if you go to spiro.media, it's in the top nav. But also once you log into the admin panel as a user, the upper right-hand corner has a question mark bubble. You can click that to go straight to it.
All right, so let's dive in. Again, this is part 2 of critical communication. Again, last week we talked about critical communication to your staff, to your contractors, hard conversations, awkward conversations, and why it's important to be able to effectively communicate, say performance issues or things like that. This week, we felt this was important. In building a good, healthy business. Everything we talk about relates to running a business, right? Great resources out there on composition and equipment and, approaches to how to shoot real estate photos. We want to talk about running a healthy business, and culture, we felt, was something that's important to talk about and know how to communicate culture to your team. But Todd, before we can even really talk about how to communicate culture, let me ask a couple of initial questions and have you kind of share with us your thoughts on this. First of all, what is culture? What are we even referring to when we talk about building a culture at your business?
Yeah, great question, Craig. So I was in a training, it was a couple years ago, and it was at a local kind of school. It was an entrepreneurial school, which is kind of cool. Sure. It's called Aileron. It's down in, it's just north of Dayton. And the individual who started the Imes dog food company was from around the area and built this humongous complex. And so we went there, and this was called the Course for Presidents. And they went over a lot of things like this. And we had a discussion as to culture. And I just love the way that the individual that was leading that day talked about culture. So he was kind of the same thing. And he started off with what culture is not. And it was really cool. I still remember it in my head. Culture is not having a ping pong table in your office. And I thought about that. I was like, well, wait a minute. Well, one, we have a ping pong table.
We do.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so what am I screwing up here? And so culture is not just this want to look cool, want to look like we're in style, want to look like work is always fun kind of idea.
Yeah.
When I think of culture and the ways that I think about how we've had many different cultures at WOW over the last 20 years. And we have by far the best culture right now. And it's not perfect. We have some gaps that we know about and that we actively work on and that we're going to solve. But looking back to some of the times that we didn't have a great culture, or I thought we had a good culture, but we actually had a really, really toxic culture. That's the toughest one. Culture, I think of the human to human aspect from the top down as to how you all are humans and work together in this day and age, this digital age as well, and how you leave every day walking out the door or turning off your computer, feeling like I got something done. I was accomplished today. I was working towards what I need to work towards. I know what I need to work towards. And I feel good about now going home to my family and I don't have to drag all this crap with me. And in those times when I think back to when we had some toxic culture, I think I focused too much on, and there were times that we were growing really, really fast and we brought a lot of people on. And we just didn't spend the appropriate time with those individuals. And unfortunately, I didn't know from the top down that there were these subcultures that were toxic and that were growing. So I think in those times we grew really fast and I thought, hey, let's get the ping pong table. There's nothing wrong with having a ping pong table. In fact, we never played ping pong on it. I just bought the ping pong table because it's a lot cheaper than a conference table. You ever priced a huge conference table? They're really expensive and I'm cheap. I bought a ping pong table. But it's the times that we bought, like, we have a massage chair, like we have an espresso machine, we had chickens. Yeah, yes, that's correct. We had chickens at one point. It's like, hey, I know, Craig.
I remember that. I wasn't around much, but I heard talk about the chickens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we had just moved into this huge new building. We gutted the thing. We made it beautiful. We made it feel new. And I thought, let's just put some lipstick on the pig. And that was going to be culture. So I made the mistake of doing that. And it's in those times I look back, I'm like, okay, where were the gaps at, Todd? Well, the gaps were at the fact that you just needed to spend the time with all the employees, at least in an onboarding. You won't be able to do this. As you grow, you don't do all this with everyone, or make sure you have leaders in place. So some things that we worked on is we worked on getting the right people in the building. Right. And really being specific about who the right people were. We began to hire better, but also I don't want to say that the people that left were the wrong people. I think I shared last week that there's some people that left WOW that I was like, oh, that really hurts. Like I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, that name was a rock star. And I just didn't set him or her up to actually succeed here. Like it's like, and you can't get those people back. The damage is already done. So in those times, core values became really important for us. Communicating better, onboarding people better. And these are all things that you'll grow into. As I look back over our journey, remember it took us 20 years. Yeah. I look back and it's like, to think about when you hire your first person, there's so much that you have to do. How do I hire somebody? Will somebody want to work for my little company? What do I ask them? Do I hire a friend? And then, okay, what do I pay them? Okay, what does it mean to have an employee? What are the laws? How do I get them on payroll? What systems do I use? How much do I pay them? And literally the list goes on and on. Right. So you're not going to have this from day one, but I think it's important to understand what you need to focus on to start to find those gaps, to close the gaps so that your shell can grow bigger.
Okay, let me rewind just a little bit. So we talked about what culture is not, but I think you started to build the foundation of what culture is. You mentioned values. Mm-hmm. Would you say it's fair to say that you have to have your own value system and worldview figured out before you can even start to build a culture at your business?
For sure. You have to, and you have to define that. And you don't have to force it on everyone. You don't have to force your worldview on everyone. Craig and I were both very open about our faith. Like literally I was in a meeting yesterday and I got there late, and it was a working lunch meeting, and we started working and I hadn't started eating yet. And I was like, hey, just let me just thank the Lord for the food real quick. And I just prayed to myself, like it takes, like, if that's your value that you need to stop and pray because you believe you need to thank God for everything that he's given you. Like, trust me, there was a point that I'm like, oh, this feels strange for me like, I'm not imposing. I'm just saying, hey, let me do what I think is right. And the response I got back was, we need to thank God for everything we do. And I was like, oh, and I didn't expect it from this person to say that. And it wasn't that I forced it on them. It's just like, hey, this is what I believe in from a world, from a spiritual, from a business. They all fit together. They really do. You can't keep them separate. You can choose not to force them on people, and that'll be a whole nother podcast. But it definitely starts with being strong in your values. And remember, you are the leader. You are the CEO of your company. People that look for jobs at your company don't want to own a company. And that's one thing that I did not have figured out for a very long time. I thought the way that I thought was the way that they thought. And I assumed that what I thought made sense to them, and I wouldn't have to verbally communicate it to them.
Assumptions can kill really quick.
Yes.
I like what you said, though, about your worldview, your value system isn't something you have to impose on others, meaning they might have a different worldview, but leading with authenticity and conviction that you're going to be consistent in living out the worldview that you're communicating to the team is important, but also with the understanding that we're all humans, right? We all do make mistakes. And that's one of the biggest criticisms you see of people towards each other is, well, you say you believe this, but you're not living it out. And so they just throw out the entire viewpoint that you might be bringing. So I think something important in any culture, any worldview, is grace for another human being. The allowance that, hey, we're all going to screw up, right? And with that understanding that, okay, we're going to allow for mistakes. We're going to allow for unintentional inconsistency. Is that fair?
Craig, I think that is so key to what you just said, to setting people up for success. We had a lot of times where at WOW, individuals would quote unquote screw up, and examining it a little more, really no fault of their own. It was either a training or onboarding, or it wasn't communicated. There was a gap in the process. And there were some times where people just made a mistake. They were trained and they just made a mistake. We're humans. We all do that. I screw things up every day. But for a while, we had a culture here of that we blamed the person. And it wasn't until, in working with coaches, that they opened up my eyes to the idea that you never blame the person. You're responsible for that. For what? Blame the process. Where did you screw up? Me, Todd, where did I screw up? So I think that's so key, Craig, because to expect people to come in and for them to be perfect is just something that's not obtainable, not realistic, and is so much pressure that nobody will want to continue to work at your business if those expectations are set.
So how does that tie in? Okay, let's dig in here. So say you have a very diverse staff, and most of us do, especially if we have VAs that are perhaps overseas. You have multi-generational, teams. Todd, you and I are on the older end of the ages of our staff, probably. So, I'm Gen X. We have millennials on our staff. I don't know if we have anyone young enough to be Gen Z or not, but you have all. You have all these different, age differences, how we see, culture. Even just here in the U.S., we have differences in how we see the world. But then you have your team members that are overseas, have an entirely different culture than American culture. So my question, and this is going to be a really broad question, it might be hard to answer. How do you communicate culture? A critical conversation that you have to have with your team. How do you communicate culture to a team that's multi-generational, international, and different worldviews? How do you even get your arms around something like that?
Craig, it's such a good question. The first thing that comes to my mind is just being authentic and transparent. And there's times, so I'm trying to think of where I screwed up. It's such a good question, Craig. I'm trying to think of where I've screwed up over the years with this and what I wasn't. So times where I wasn't transparent and not trying to hide something, but just not communicating well. And then there's other times where I was not authentic because it was like I felt like I was the business owner. I needed to act like everything was great and that everything was perfect and there's no problems. And that I think can turn people off even faster than addressing and saying, hey guys, we have this gap that we're aware of. And we don't exactly know how to solve it right now, but we know that you guys hold the answers to fixing this gap. And what we're going to do is we're going to schedule some time to do a roundtable, to brainstorm. So just not acting like everything's okay when it's not. I can think back of some really big screw ups that I went in front of our leadership team and like, guys, this is like a red flag problem, like a huge problem that if we don't fix this, we are either going to, or we're going to be on a path of potentially losing a ton of business that we have to let go. A lot of the employees that potentially could lead to a lot of other things. So just trying to conclude in my head, I think being authentic about what is going on and communicating properly and clearly and transparent about what's going on. Now, I want to be careful because I'm not saying you need to just share everything because sharing information with some people is a burden. And they don't need to know that information.
Right.
One, everybody wants to be in the know, and they do. It's just part of our humanness. The FOMO is a thing, fear of missing out. But those individuals don't need to know necessarily at a capacity or at an interval that you will know information. It's much like think about when you have children. Okay. And if you don't have children, think about how you grew up. Did you go to school and did they push the physics book over to you or calculus or any other higher level item? No, we didn't grow like that. We grew with the very basic things and we started laying a foundation. And the same is true with your communication as to where you don't need to just throw physics at somebody someday. They don't need to know about that.
Right.
And that can be too heavy for them because like, oh, holy crap, I got to learn physics now. And then they go and they tell their coworker like, hey, there's this thing called physics. Like Todd probably wants you to learn it too. And that's the way communication travels. So put anything else. So maybe somebody leaving the company, maybe you terminating somebody, maybe you getting a contract or losing a contract. That's what physics is. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. And if everyone at your company knows that, they might not need to know it right now because you'll announce and you'll set expectations about moving on from an employee. But if they know before you've set those expectations, that spreads throughout your company. And then everybody sets their own expectations as to what does that mean. And then everybody thinks they're not going to have a job tomorrow because the sky's falling.
And because you came in the room and, hey, Craig, can we talk on a Friday? You come, hey, can we talk on Monday?
Exactly.
Going back to last week's episode.
Yes. So true.
Yeah, we can read a lot of things into statements. Yeah.
So, Craig, in your experience, is there what is your opinion on? Because I think your question was so great. So, what is your opinion on that with setting that culture and making sure that that is in a way that it needs to be communicated?
So yeah, being authentic and transparent with people, but not communicating everything. I agree. There's things that you're dealing with day to day at a very high level in the business that if you were to tell me everything, it doesn't affect what my role is and my job is. So if I'm stressing about things at a higher level of the business that don't directly impact my day-to-day job, that's just going to add a burden to what I'm already carrying in my own responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So my responsibilities, for the company are to develop business in the market that I'm in, and to go out and shoot those services that we provide our clients, and do that at a very high level and serve my people, my area of responsibility well. But if I'm then adding the stress of high-level decisions that I don't actually have responsibility for, how is that going to impact my day-to-day performance and what I am responsible for? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I answered the question or not, but
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm thinking is, don't over-communicate, be real. Mm-hmm. The thing I've always appreciated about managers that I've worked for before, or owners or whatever, is them being real with me, and being understanding. I don't need to know everything that's going on in their world, but at least be real with me and be honest. If there's something that is going to impact me, then share it with me. Mm-hmm. Empower me to do what I can to help, if that's appropriate. A leader showing trust in the team that he or she has built is huge for building morale and building trust in that culture. If you trust me to help provide to the success of the business, I feel valuable. I feel needed and part of the team.
You brought us to a great segue into another topic of communication. So I think we've talked about that good communication can build culture. Culture needs to be authentic to you, and it needs to be, what's ingrained in you with your values and beliefs, and then your company, core values and so on and so forth. But communication is interesting. And it's like, so you feeling that you're a part of the company and the success of the company is important to you, Craig. Is that correct? That's what you said?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think one thing from an owner's perspective is that what Craig just said is going to be true for everyone, but it's going to be, you'll communicate it differently or show them differently, pending the way that they appreciate or naturally want that information to come in. On the flip side, so Craig's happy when WOW is successful and when he's contributing. And he feels good about that. And I know that Craig likes to know that, like verbally, like it's great to verbalize that to Craig. There's some people that they don't really want it verbalized at all. They might just want their check to reflect, their paycheck to reflect it.
Yeah.
There's some other people that they don't necessarily want to know it. They want all of their coworkers to know that they're doing that. So they want more of a community kind of praise, if you will. So there's different levels of that, and understanding the individual's personality and how they want that, I think is really important, Craig. What do you feel on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that directly ties into a book I know we've mentioned several times, the 5 love languages. There's different ways to show people appreciation and that you care about them and are concerned about them. So yeah, my main way of receiving affirmation is words of affirmation, literal, hey, you're doing a great job in this, and couching, any corrective action. Maybe I need to work on something that, one aspect of my job, but couching it in terms of, hey, you're doing a great job overall, especially with this. Let's tweak this a little bit. If you couch it in terms of what I'm doing right, and hey, let's just improve in this area, I can receive that really easily. I don't feel condemned. I don't feel beat down. But if you come at me with harsh words and hey, you're really dropping the ball here, and there's been no context of, am I doing anything right? Then I'm going to spiral down. So yeah, understanding your team is part of the culture you have to build as a leader. And it's hard. It takes time. It takes commitment. I mean, yes, you have the business to run, but you have no business without your team. So investing in your people and getting to know them and what makes them tick and motivates them is hugely, hugely important.
Yeah. So question, Craig, like, okay, so wow, this information is incredible. Like, okay, so I have a team. It's super important to know how they want to be communicated with and what drives them and how to then correct them. Wow, Craig, this seems like, and I have to manage all this, and I'm running like I've heard there's some personality tests and there's a love language book I could read. Like, this seems so difficult. Like, I have to figure this out.
I don't think you're ever going to figure it all out, but there's principles you can start to apply day to day. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. And I would. So, okay, so let me pause for a second here. Not pause the podcast, but just pause with you all. And so you all know that I gear towards the way of lazy. Like, if I can be lazy, like, just give me the easiest, least path resistant. I'm a smarter, not harder type of individual. Like, I'm always looking for the most efficient, easy way. And so when I started to understand these communication styles and these things, I felt the weight of it. Like, it just opened up my eyes. I was like, holy cow, Todd, this is what you screwed up. But it was great because it's like, okay, I know how to fix it now. But then it was like, I need to learn all this stuff. And what a coach told me is like, oh no, you don't have to know it. Like, it's good to read books on it and be aware of it so that you can do this with your clients and you can do this with people that you don't ask these questions. But you can simply just ask your employees, how do you like to be recognized when you do something good?
Yeah.
When you need some training or when you've maybe screwed something up and we need to tell you how to do something different, how would you like me to communicate when we need you to do your work a little bit differently?
Let me put a pause on your pause. Just asking.
I see what you did there, Craig.
Even just asking that question to me as an employee makes me feel part of the process and part of the team. Like, I'm actually being valued. Like, management, they're not just giving lip service. Well, follow through on the information your employee gives you when you ask that question Todd just asked. Because if you don't, then you're going to lose them. Act on the information that you're getting from them. Because here's the thing. You ask me that question and you actually make a movement on relating to me as a staff member in the way that I told you that I react well to, I will run through a freaking brick wall for you and for the business because I've been heard and I've been valued. There's a guy to this day that I worked for at 2 different radio stations that led very well. Now, he wasn't perfect. No one is. But he asked questions. He showed appreciation for who I was. He invested in me. He mentored me. And to this day, I will run through a wall for that man because he cared about me as an individual and he took the time to get to know me and set me up for success in the man that I am today. And that transcended just the job. It was just, he mentored me just in life in general. So show value and show interest in your team. Ask the question that Todd just asked. How do you best feel how can I provide? Well, I'll let you ask it. I feel like I'm rambling again.
No, it's perfect. It's just, so let's give them something practical, Craig. This is something practical for you when you onboard anyone that's going to report to you. And you should create a employee questionnaire. Simple. Okay. Birthday, and then tell them they don't have to put the year if they don't want to. What is your favorite color? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite snack? What are your hobbies? Do you have a spouse? Do you have animals? Okay. What are names of do you have children? What are their names and ages? Okay. Very simple things. And I'm serious. Like, I'm not joking. Like, create this. Like, we have it at WOW. And then what do you do for fun? Items like that. And that right there is going to let you know a lot more about that employee. What do they like so if you're going to praise them for something, or if you're just going to leave a note on their desk with a treat, like if you put their favorite candy bar there, like it just shows a little bit more care that you know about them. Like, oh, hey, he remembered that I like Snickers. And then, and I don't know if you go on this questionnaire, but maybe in your onboarding, you ask them those questions. Hey, I just want to make sure that we set you up for success here. And we really believe that all of our people are the key to our success. So we are so excited to have you come into our company. We ask everyone the same questions when they come in. So just know this isn't anything special, anything that we only asked you, but we want to make sure that we really set you up for success and we grow as a team here. And we like to know, in forms of communication, when you're doing something good, how would you like to be communicated to? And let them answer that question and write down the answer to that question. And then say, okay, on the flip side, and remember, again, this isn't just for you, so we're not anticipating that you're going to do this, but when we need to correct some of the activities you're doing, and when we need to let you know that you did something not correct, and here's the correct way to do it, how would you like us to communicate that to you? And what would be the best way to deliver that? And I think those are two key questions to understand. And there's probably a ton other that we can think about, maybe give you guys a list. And those are all things that you can continue to add to your documents. And in fact, like if you think of something, just add it to your list. But if the list only has 2 items on it right now, don't not use it. Use it for your next employee. And then when you think of another question, go back and update the draft of that questionnaire and just add the 3rd question, the 4th question, the 5th question. And those are some practical things that you can begin to build. So there, I've just given you 2 documents that you can build. So it's a cheat sheet to 2 documents. So if you don't have anything documented, no SOPs or no onboarding guides, that's a very simple way to have the employee questionnaire and then the onboarding guide for critical communication.
Just by doing those 2 things, you're already communicating a culture. And it's a culture of, I care about you as an individual, and you're more than just a number and a profit center for me. And those are questions you can ask any generation. Those are questions you can ask any international, part of your team. What I found, Todd, especially with international friends, is we might have different cultures, but honestly, when it gets down to it, our core needs and wants are pretty much all the same. We love our kids. We care about our families. Those things, that transcends international boundaries. So, very simple things to do right off the bat. Let me ask 2 more questions to kind of hone in on communicating culture to our teams before we wrap this up. First, how do you communicate that you're going to be guarding that culture? Say you have somebody come in that is part of your team, but they're not quite gelling with the culture, and you need to guard that as the leader. You need to guard that culture. How do you communicate guarding and protecting the culture that you've worked so hard to build?
Yeah. So it's a great question, because if you don't protect it, it crumbles way faster than it takes to build it.
Yeah.
I mean, it crumbles instantly. It could take you years to build it, and it could be gone in no time. So it's understanding it's understanding that when it becomes a ripple and not a wave. Well, how do you do that, Todd? Well, you have to have constant communication and check-ins and feedbacks with your team. And again, it might not be you personally. Like, I have check-ins with my leadership team, and then the leadership team checks in with everyone else. So there can be a hierarchy there. But you need to make sure that you have those times. So daily check-ins, they're quick walk-arounds. A quick walk around. Hey, everything's going? Are there any gaps I need to know about? anything I can do to help you? 3 quick questions. It's a 1 to 3 minute conversation, and there's typically some small talk, and that builds as well. And then on a monthly basis, I meet with all the leaders on my team. So we have it's about an hour-long conversation, and this format just works good for us. And we go into depth as to what's working well, where are there gaps, and then what can I do to help? And I keep notes month after month, and we'll follow up from the previous month. Last month, you told me these were the things that you were working on. How are those going? These were the gaps. How did this work? And then, I sent you those documents. Did those help? So I think understanding that in communicating with your team, you're going to find out real quick when that new person comes in and they're making ripples. At that point, you have like the golden ticket. You can now go to that employee and you can let them know about that ripple. Now, be careful, but you don't want to come and say, so-and-so, Craig told me that you were doing this. Okay, so you have to be strategic about how you tell them.
Go back to last week's episode on how to ask some of those questions and get that conversation going.
Yes, you can do. Yeah, exactly. And then I was also going to say, go back to the form that they told you of how they want communicated to. And you can say, hey, remember when, and you're going to hold up the form. You're going to say, remember when we onboarded, I asked you a question about how I can communicate when you need to make an adjustment for us here. And you told me that you just wanted a face-to-face conversation. So this is what this is. No red alarms. This is going to be super simple, but I wanted to bring it up to you today that you were doing this and we expect this. Moving forward, do you have any questions? And it's that short the first time. It is. And then after you have that conversation, let them ask questions. Okay, don't go into the weeds. You're not accusing them of murder at this point. You're just saying, hey, when you use the coffee machine, if you're the last person, just clean out the carafe, like it's a small thing at this. It's a ripple. And then what you need to do after that meeting with them, you need to email them and say, hey, thank you so much for your time today. Just wanted to reiterate, this is what we discussed and this is what we expect moving forward. So excited for this, yada, 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 make them feel great. Thanks, Todd. And that's how you will squash it before it gets to a wave. By the time it gets to a wave or a tsunami, you have to take much larger steps in getting rid of that. And sometimes it means that person or groups of people have to leave your company.
There you go. Good way to guard culture and communicate that you are guarding that culture.
And it takes work. I think that's the biggest thing is it takes constant work. And if that's hard, so for some people that's easy. Some people it's you naturally, you see people around or you're like, hey, I haven't talked to so-and-so, I'm going to call them. Okay. And that's easy for you. If that's not easy for you, just put it on your calendar. Literally, I had a leader here that it was very difficult for him to do. And I was like, okay, we need to put these are all your direct reports. Add them to your calendar at this frequency. And you might feel guilty about like, oh, I need them. Remember, I got to go check in with Craig. But no, like that's just a mechanism that you actually do go check in with him and be authentic when you have a conversation with him. But if you need a reminder to just go check in with them, then add it to your calendar. And it doesn't have to be long. The thing is, if you put off check-ins for a very long time, typically there's a lot to talk about and those conversations get long and heavy. So you don't want to do them again.
Right.
But when you can make it light and quick and easy and schedule it, it's like cake. It's like, oh yeah, I can do that. No problem. It's going to take 5 minutes.
Awesome. All right. Last question. And I think we can wrap up. So we've talked about, the why of building culture, how to communicate that culture, guarding the culture, all which involves communicating it. But when we get down to brass tacks, we're owners, we're leaders. We want to see results. We like measurables. We like measuring things. What's the ROI? What's the ROI on communicating culture effectively for the day-to-day business, Todd? If you had to summarize it and boil it down to 1 or 2 measurables, what impact does this actually have on your business?
Wow, that's Oh, holy cow, Craig. That's a great question, because that's why we're doing it after all.
Right.
Why do I do?
I have an answer in the back of my head, but I'm curious if we agree on what that is. We didn't script this, people. we didn't. We didn't talk about this.
We didn't at all.
We might have two different takes on this.
So the question is what is the ROI on spending the time to build culture?
Yes.
It is ultimately succeeding at the definition of why you started your business. It's creating a profitable enterprise that works for you and you achieving your personal goals from your business. And none of that's going to be possible unless that culture understands what you want, how you expect it, what the goals are, and that you care about them. And this is where the ship's heading. And we're all together as a team heading in that direction. And we get excited when we succeed and we pick each other up when we have a gap or a failure. And we're able to do anything because we know we have the right people here.
I'm going to tie this together, and you kind of did. So you're looking at it from, I'm going to look at it from two different perspectives. You approach the owner perspective, making a profitable enterprise that works for you. So you're leading a business and communicating culture. Well, there's little drama for you, right? If you have a healthy culture, you're enjoying what you do as a business owner. And ultimately, I want to live my life without drama. We're always going to have some drama, but if we can minimize that and make it a healthy culture, we get to enjoy what we do. So there's the measurable for Todd as the owner. Now, for me as the staff member, as the employee, the contractor, whatever, the importance of Todd communicating that culture to me and me buying into that and him taking all that effort to communicate it and live it out is I'm a happier employee. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay with that company longer because I've found a healthy place to work where I'm being fulfilled in my purpose as well. I hate to break it down to numbers, but how much does it cost to lose an effective employee, and how much does it cost you to hire a new one?
Yeah. For many of you out there, it could cost you your business, literally.
Yeah.
Your business.
Right.
That's good
what
stuff,
it
Craig.
kind of boils down to. I mean, there is the numbers, but I mean, I would rather stick with a team that I just enjoy working with and be happy in my life. I mean, there's a intangible value to that as both an employee and an owner. If you can enjoy what you're doing as the owner, and the employee or the contractor is enjoying what they're doing as an employee or a contractor, man, there's a good quality of life there that's just worth the effort of communicating culture.
Yeah. Craig, not to go too philosophical, and I'll take 20 seconds to say this, but that's literally the key to everything you all do in life.
Yeah.
Your relationships, if that's with a spouse, if that's with your kids. Like when you don't think of self first and you think of them, like I am happy when they're happy.
Yeah.
You begin to make decisions that are in others' best interest, and they make it in your best interest. And that's how you push the ball so much faster. Because when Craig and I are in different directions and I have to self-serve, and then he feels as oh crap, like if I don't stick up for myself, like Todd's just going to take over. So I've got to start to dig in my heels a little bit, or just leave. That would probably be Craig's more personality. Like, hey, I'm not wanted here. Like I'm just going to transition on. And it depends on the personality. But when you get past that and you think of the others and think of the team first, for a better, for a sports analogy, it's so simple, but not easy.
Right. Man, what good conversation, Todd.
It is. Yes, it is.
I've enjoyed today.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder and a good just find it kind of fun and painful to go down memory lane there.
Yeah.
And Craig, I think a lot of our listeners are going to be sitting out there and like, oh, Todd, Craig, it's busy season. Like I'm shooting more houses than I ever. Yeah, I know. I shot more houses than I ever shot before. And what I would say is, one, you're doing the right thing where you're putting in to yourself. Okay. So not everything that I say has a lot of value, but I will tell you that my company, if I would have known this 20 years ago, I would have gone through a lot less pain and we would have grown faster and bigger. I'm not unhappy with where we're at. I'm happy with where we're at. It was the learning. Mm-hmm. But if you can put this in your brain and then you find some time to focus on this and just think about it, a simple thing. If you have employees and you don't know how they prefer to be communicated to with praise and with correction, tomorrow, ask them that individually, and you've moved the ball forward, and they're going to go, just like Craig said, like, whoa, they really think it. Like, I'm really impressed that they asked me that question. I can tell you that you will gain good grace from them, and you'll also then know how to effectively communicate with them.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, that was a good one. I'll break here just on a different note. Some of you have emailed us questions. I have saved them, and we will get to them. So thank you for asking those questions. Keep sending them in. We do get them, and I compile them in a list. So if you have questions, keep sending them in. hello@spiro.media. We will pick some podcasts here in the future to go through those questions. Maybe we'll devote a whole podcast to it, or we'll go through a quick fire like we've done in the past and answer those questions. But we love to hear from you. Yeah. Thanks for emailing us. And I just wanted to communicate that with you here on the air, that we have received your questions and we are going to definitely answer them.
Perfect. Again, hello@spiro.media. And if you do want to find out more about Spiro, if you're not familiar with the platform, maybe you're just watching this or listening to this podcast for the first time, you can check out the software platform at spiro.media. It's free to sign up for an account, try things out, take it for a spin. Mm-hmm. We'd love to have you check it out. But in the meantime, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, to listen. If you found value in this podcast, feel free to share it with others. Click the like button, all the stuff that all the podcasters say. We appreciate it. I don't mean to blow it off, but I don't like formulas. We just like to be real with people, but we do appreciate when you share and like things as well. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap things up this week. Make sure that you take time to be thankful for the blessings in your life. Make sure you take time to take a breath and have a great week. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Spiro Podcast, Managing Your Real Estate Photography and Videography Business. This is a production of Spiro and Wow Video Tours. You can find out more about Spiro's real estate media business management software at our website, spiro.media.